What's good, yo? Welcome to episode 49 of MKN GNZ Tv. I have a very special guest. I don't know what happened there. Gains and guests got mixed in.
I understand.
But we don't edit because people make mistakes and just rock with it.
That's okay.
Introducing Rosalind Lucien. Can I have a handshake, please? Thank you for coming in today.
That handshake's a little firmer since I've been training.
Oh yeah, my knuckles hurt now. Oh, this is our first guest with notes. I like it. You gotta be prepared. First time for everything. Cool, so tell them where you're from, Roz.
I am from Teaneck, New Jersey. It's important that I shout out Teaneck, New Jersey because we are the first town in the United States to voluntarily desegregate the public school system.
Gains.
So I'm a K through 12 Teaneck girl, the best town in America. But because of my Teaneck experience, it has colored the lens for how I view education and what I believe kids are capable of. So I want to make Teaneck's.
So what do you believe kids are capable of that the education system doesn't believe? How is it different?
So that's interesting that you say that.
We're getting right into the meat.
Once I was on a conference call, like a leadership conference call, and one of the speakers said, true education in America is reserved for children of the wealthy. And I was like, huh? Because again, I grew up in Teaneck, New York City suburb in Bergen County, and while we weren't all Huxtables, the Cosby Show was never strange to us.
Yeah.
People had two parents in a household. It wasn't, are you going to college? It was, which college will you go to? So the expectation was just, you go to school, you do well, your teachers help you do well, and then you move on to the next step. But like you lift as you climb. So it was really a community and a village.
Lift as you climb, amen.
And that village consisted of, I had administrators who were men and women. Mm-hmm. I had administrators who were across a wide variety of ethnicities.
Okay.
So I'm dating myself, but there used to be a company, they're still in Europe, I don't know if they're in America, called United Colors of Benetton. And there used to be an ad that looked like the United Nations with like kids ranging from like white to black with like all shades of brown.
Yeah.
So that was my lunch table.
Nice, nice.
So at Easter time, when we used to make our construction paper Easter egg baskets, we had colored eggs and matzo crackers.
Nice. That covers the range.
So, but that wasn't strange for us.
Yeah.
So we're a town
to so much
that has a large Jewish population, and right now Teaneck has a Muslim mayor.
Yeah.
Like, where is that happening in America?
So what's different then? How does that differ from what you see now outside of Teaneck?
Being first generation American, as a kid, I remember during Black History Month on the PA system, they would pipe in Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And I'm ashamed to say that when I was a little kid, I literally thought to myself, that was a long time ago. Racism doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Because I lived in Teaneck. Yeah. And my parents were not from this country. So that was all I knew. I didn't have grandparents telling me about Jim Crow in the South. I didn't know anything about that. Overt racism was never my baseline. Yeah. But then I graduated from Teaneck and I started to travel to different parts of the country. And sometimes I would experience things and it would literally take me almost like getting smacked in the face to realize what was like,
oh snap.
Like, oh my.
Yeah.
Like, is that because I never experienced that before. Yeah. And then when I started going into schools and seeing the low bar that was just acceptable for kids, it was like, well, this is different. Yeah. So even though I didn't go to private school, it was like I went to a private school because the bar was so high. Okay,
so let's spin off of that high bar, low bar, because now you help kids do a little bit more than they're used to or exposed. Prior guest Daryl Shands and even Joe Young and other kids that I've helped and been involved with, you've also, and that's how we met. Mm-hmm. So talk about the SAT gains you help these guys make, how you raise the bar and push them. You just said earlier, lift as you climb.
Exactly. So part of how I'm not I'm not a conventional teacher. I don't have a teaching certification. That was not what I went to school to do. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and Africana studies, and I have a master's degree in clinical and counseling psychology. I'm a master's level clinician. However, my children became my primary focus for the past 18 years. And I have a philosophy that if it's good for my kid, it's good for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
If my kids can succeed, your kid can too.
Yeah.
Because I believe there's enough room for all of our kids to win.
Absolutely.
So I don't believe in hoarding resources. I'm not there, and there are people who like that, like that, and God bless them. But I'm not going to be over here and be like, shh, don't tell nobody, don't tell nobody. When I find out that there's something, I'm putting you on, you on, you on, you on, and you on.
Let's
Come
go.
on, let's go.
Let's go.
Everybody, let's go.
Putting everybody on. We can all eat. Absolutely.
Everybody can eat, because that's how you win, like by collaborating.
Yes.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to think that my grandmother's house was a hotel, because we had so much family who came here from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And lived in our house at one point, or we were constantly going to the airport. It felt like we were always going to JFK to pick somebody up. And they lived in the extra room, they got a job, saved some money, and literally the next year, they were homeowners, moved out, somebody else came.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything else other than to collaborate and share.
Okay.
And I want my kids to be that same way.
Your personal kids, or now the kids that you help and work with? And
it's funny that you say that, because I call them my bonus babies.
Okay.
So sometimes when a kid will first meet me, they'll be like, "Dad, Miss Rosalind, why are you so tough on us? Why are you so hard?" And I say, because the other people you've encountered had a low bar for you, that's my fault. Why?
Yeah.
I say, you should actually be offended. I'm not going to treat kids any different than my own kid.
Uh-huh.
So if I tell my kids, I want you to put in this amount of effort because I know you can, I'm not going to say, well, this isn't really my kid, so I don't really care what they do.
Yeah, that's kind of cold-blooded, right?
Like, that's not how you win.
That's not a good way to operate.
You know?
Yeah.
And I often make this correlation because my kids are athletes as well. You couldn't expect to win a game on Saturday if you miss practice all week.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do well? Like, you have to put yourself into a game day scenario where you anticipate what's going to happen. You see if you make mistakes, and the next day in practice, you clean up the mistakes from yesterday. That's actually how I approach SAT prep.
Nice. So what's like the first step of SAT prep, and then when kids get with you in classroom, and kind of just draw that out?
Initially, we have to determine a baseline. We got to know, what do you know, what do you not know? Sometimes I'll see kids take the SAT over and over again, or they're just taking practice tests, taking practice tests, taking practice tests.
I took it over and over again.
It's good to take a practice test, right? Because the SAT is a marathon. So by that I mean, if you were training for a marathon and you jogged around this building,
just once?
Just once.
Yeah, that's probably not going to do it.
That's not going to help you.
It's half a mile.
Most children have seldom had an opportunity to take an assessment that lasted over 3 hours straight.
Yeah, just thinking about having to take the SAT again just give me the heebie-jeebies. Yeah.
So the first thing that you have to stretch is your mind's muscle to build up the endurance to sit there for a 3-hour test.
That's right.
Because if you don't, halfway through, you're like, man, I'm tired of this.
Yeah, you're not in shape.
I don't want to do this anymore. And you literally will tune out, zone out. I have had kids literally go like this and fall asleep. And I'm like, dude, are you sleeping?
Yeah.
But they weren't ready.
They weren't in shape.
So the first thing that you have to do is develop a baseline to find out, where are you? What do you know? What do you not know? And then you have to dissect. So sometimes I see trainers, various trainers that, I've come across, and they take film, right? Or you have a game day, and then what's the next thing that the team does? They sit down and they watch film.
Yeah.
You have to see, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Because if you have a limited amount of time, why are you going to keep practicing what you know already?
Yeah.
That's not a good use of time. And then add to that, kids are students. They are doing extracurriculars, whether it's athletics, music, performing. There's only so many hours in the day, and you have to sleep and you have to eat.
Yeah.
So if we only have this much time, we have to maximize that time so that something different results.
So after the baseline, kids get a customized plan.
Yes.
And then now there's
I
different.
do some general instruction,
Yeah.
and then I do specific instruction. So at the same time, we're
Yeah.
kind of doing group training, one-on-one training. And then I'll send you back to take that same assessment you took before
Okay.
to see, because it's all about the data, right?
Absolutely.
Are,
And
are-
adjusting off it,
is-
yeah.
Exactly. So are we getting better, right? Is it that we have to change how we're doing something? Do we need to increase something? Okay, we made some gains here. Now we can decrease on this and maybe kick it up someplace else.
Absolutely.
You know? But when kids start to see, because I think that sometimes when kids take the test and they don't, it's very humbling,
Very humbling.
that test, because I know parents who are from top school districts in the Lehigh Valley. I know kids who are in gifted curriculums in the Lehigh Valley, or their whole transcript is honors and AP. And sometimes parents get a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Like, my kid is good, and then they take the test and they're like, what happened?
Yeah.
And that's largely because the way that children's grades are calculated, there's a lot of fluff in there. So, for example, I know some students who would average 88, 89 in their history class at a local school. Now, 88, 89 isn't a bad grade, right?
Correct.
However, when they would take their final or their midterm, it would be a 60.
Because they had to work longer and think.
No,
longer.
not at all. They'd be like, I don't understand how I got a 60. Dude, you've been getting 60s and 70s all along, but you got a participation grade, you have a homework grade, so it inflates your grade in a way that their psyche thinks, oh, I'm good. Actually, you're not. You're very mediocre.
So the baseline now to your
So
curriculum kind of
it encourages mastery.
gets the meat going.
Exactly. So
Takes the fluff out, gets the
it
meat
used
going.
to be 2,400 points. It's like ping pong back and forth between 16 and 2,400 points over the years, but it recently went back to 1,600 points. Sometimes I tell kids, now you got to meet everybody where they are, right? So Joe is going to Harvard. That's amazing. Everybody doesn't want to go to Harvard,
Correct.
right? I tell kids,
I sure didn't want to go to Harvard.
don't worry about the whole 800 points.
Yeah.
Let's get you to 5. Let's get you to 6. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you break down that strategy, it's doable, but kids need to see that they can do it so that they're motivated. Because I know some people who their parents have spent thousands upon thousands of money on SAT prep, and it's yielded nothing.
So how is what you get to do a little different?
Because I think that when I show a kid that you actually can learn this and narrow down, look, this is specifically what you're having trouble with. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on this. For example, I do an exercise with all of the kids that I'm working with at a time where they'll battle for vocabulary.
Okay. So competition
I
breeds
have
success.
parents texting me because they hear their son in their room literally fighting over vocabulary words because they're on a team, but then they're fighting against, I don't want to say fight, they're competing against their peers. So when they get a word wrong, they're yelling at the teammate like, why don't you know that word? How come you didn't get, but I tell them, even when you get the word wrong, you're learning the word. Because the next time you see that word, I bet you're going to remember that word.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to know what it felt like when you lost. So it's kind of like when a kid drops a ball in a game, they go back to practice and they do drills over and over and over and over again. So they don't make that same mistake.
Correct.
Again, when you get the buy-in from the kid and they want to do it, then it works. Because I'm not magic, right? But I think that the first thing is to find out what the kids' view on education is, what their experience has been. Because I'll tell you something, I'm not speaking out of turn because Joe has said it publicly, But the first time, and Joe was a good student in school. He wasn't a bad student. But the first day that he took my SAT class and the math tutor worked with him, he was like, Miss Roz, I didn't know I could do math like that. I was like, what do you mean you didn't know you could do math like that? Mm-hmm. Because the environment that he had been in before wasn't one that made him believe that he could. Sometimes in some of the spaces that our kids find themselves in, the teacher is not someone who's motivating and encouraging them. So, especially if you're in a class that's 25 kids, it's real easy to sit in the back and be quiet. Because if you're not bothering anyone,
just do your work and hand it in and
keep your head down, and no one's gonna push you more than that, right? And unfortunately, something else that I've learned is it's very difficult for some people to see your kid go further than theirs has. Yeah. Or go further than they themselves have. I had a parent who called me so upset because her son was in an AP economics class.
Why was she mad?
Because the teacher went off on a rant and said, I don't see why all of you kids are trying to go to these fancy schools. I went to a state school and it was good enough for me. These schools cost too much.
Just shutting your dreams down.
And the kid like texted the mom and was like, well, Mom, maybe I shouldn't be looking at Lehigh.
Wow.
And she was like, what are you talking about?
One person having a bad day and ranting and...
You would, but, huh? Yeah. Like if I were that teacher, I would be proud that my kid surpassed me. That my student did better than I did.
That's the problem. Like you said, my kid, and teachers just think my student. He's here, it becomes kind of like a prison sentence. He's my student for a couple months and then he's off and then I wash my hands with that.
And there are literally people who, and I'm not knocking it. It's honest work, right? And as long as you're not beating a kid, right? I suppose that's good. But they're literally like dream killers out there in these buildings. And parents don't realize what's happening. Yeah. Because I have had the privilege to be behind the curtain, and I've worked in just about every school district in this area doing contract work. I've been in and out. So when you're considered a coworker, people talk different than they speak when parents are there.
Oh yeah. My background's in education too.
So sometimes I hear people and I'm like, did you really say that? Like, that's somebody's child. Yeah. Did you really say that? Or there've even been times, because this melanin, I'm younger than I appear. No, I appear younger than I am. I've been in high schools and been mistaken for a student.
Oh, go ahead, girl.
And I've been barked on. And I'm like, is this how you talk to kids?
Yeah, no wonder they don't like being in school.
Like, are you really talking to children that way?
Yeah.
Like, that's not acceptable. I've gone to schools as early as elementary schools. And I have a personal thing about the Lehigh Valley where I feel that no matter who you are, if you're a student in this valley, you must tour Lehigh, you must tour Lafayette, and you must tour Muhlenberg. Mm-hmm. We've got
What about Moravian? No love for Moravian?
Well, Moravian also, but my point is Lehigh and Lafayette first, and then Muhlenberg in that order. I'm putting Lehigh and Lafayette side by side. I don't want any problems. But they are 3 highly selective liberal arts colleges. Mm-hmm. Highly selective liberal arts college is a very important moniker because, especially Lehigh and Lafayette, I'm not positive about Muhlenberg, but those schools will meet 100% of demonstrated financial need. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? You don't have to play a sport. All you have to do is go to school, keep your grades up, and have a solid test score.
That's it.
And you can go to school from free to very affordable. But at a minimum, you can pay less money at Lehigh or Lafayette that have a $70K plus tuition bill than you would at East Stroudsburg.
That's crazy.
So when parents are looking at schools and they're just looking at the dollar amount, they're shortchanging themselves. because private universities have endowments. And your child can benefit from that endowment. So when I go to elementary schools and I'm dealing with 2nd and 3rd graders, and they're kids in Southside Bethlehem that Lehigh is literally in their backyard. I'm like, hey, have you ever been to Lehigh's campus? And they will say to me, I can't afford to go there.
Just in middle school,
elementary school.
Elementary school, they already have that.
So they've already learned. They've already gotten a message someplace that I'm poor, that's not for me. Nah, not on my watch.
Yeah.
No
So
way.
you talked about the dream killers and sometimes in our classrooms. What about, how are you, and I've seen it, but can you talk about how you've helped make some dreams come true already in, the year and a half I've known you or been in the same circles as you?
So I'll start with my kids and go down. My daughter goes to a highly selective liberal arts school in New England. She went to a boarding school in Pennsylvania. And so she started doing great. My kids were part of a program called A Better Chance. It's like a 50-year-old nonprofit. It struck me as insane that my daughter was the first ABC scholar in the Lehigh Valley.
What's that mean?
The program at that point had been around for like 44 years. How was my daughter the first person in the Lehigh Valley in this program?
Okay.
That defied
just
logic.
Missed this whole area
to me, where I was like, huh?
Yeah.
But I was also willing to do something different. I wasn't happy with what was going on in their current educational environment.
Okay.
And I had another woman I was very close to, and my boys were best friends with her boys. And so my daughter was number 1, my son was number 2, her son was number 3. I said, we're going this way, you coming?
Yeah.
And we did it. Then more kids. I started having information sessions. I had them at my house. I had them at, a local school.
We had a symposium here. We'll put that link right there.
So TNEC was my baseline, right? But throughout the years, I've learned more and learned more and learned more. And like I said, I believe in sharing resources. So, they say it takes a village to raise a child.
Oh my God, I was just thinking about that.
So I always say, a village will raise your child. Who have you allowed in your village?
Yes.
Because for good or for bad,
that person will be there to raise.
Someone's going to raise your kid.
Yeah.
So I tell people, I can't tell you what to do in your house, but that's why my kids don't go to everyone's house.
That's what we're trying to build here,
right?
Is like the Mettle Movements village. I'm so happy you've come along and helped athletes, and even me, I've learned so much from you already.
So as we learned something, and my village grew, when we moved here, we have no family in the Lehigh Valley, but I built a village. My kids are thriving because of that village. So there's like an email link of a group of moms, me and other moms, where as soon as we see something, we're like, tell your kids to apply for this. This happened.
Is this the Tiger Mom group chat you were just telling me about?
Sort of, kind of.
Tiger Moms. You got to go back to your email chain and label it Tiger Moms for me.
Exactly. So when that started happening, so like I said, everyone doesn't want to go to Harvard, right? But I believe that every child needs a good education.
Yes.
Right? As my kids began in this private school world, an independent school space, I was at Parents Weekend, and I was sitting in there, and I thought to myself, wow, I was so happy that my daughter got to be at this amazing school that felt like it was a college.
Yeah.
I simultaneously felt sad because I felt like, how come other kids can't get this?
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted it for other kids. Right? So something that started to like really get under my skin was because, again, I've got these athletes for children. I started hearing names of kids who are these amazing athletes, and they're on, what is it, the Big Ticket on Friday night? That every week they're citing these kids' names, but they weren't going to school anywhere.
It's a shame.
And I was like, what in the world?
Where's the disconnect?
Like, completely, where's the disconnect? And the disconnect is, Children need to, one, physically see the example to know that they can, right? Otherwise, they're going to solely rely on what they see on TV, what they see on social media. Young people in this country
So
really
the example has to be
believe-
closer than
Exactly.
TV, internet,
So
social media.
they need to
It's got to
see,
be in their village.
They need to see an athlete closer to them who has gotten to college,
Right out of their neighborhood.
who can tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
Tell them how I did it, right? In Pennsylvania, this is just a fact. Some people might get salty, but whatever. With the PIAA, the governing body who determines who's eligible to play
Yeah.
every week in games, you can fail 2 classes and still play in your game.
But
It's a whole lot of kids failing 2 classes and are still playing in their game each week. When you go to you went to college and played sports, could you fail 2 classes and still play?
you missed the whole semester, you'd be academically ineligible for the whole next semester. You probably couldn't practice, you'd be on probation.
So
And
there's a
whole,
disconnect between what's happening in high school and what it takes to get to the next level. Who's having that conversation with these kids?
Not the coaches, not.
And there are some parents who literally believe, my kid plays football, he's going to go to college. Oh, the school's going to take care of him.
Yeah. We've kind of seen that happen.
I think
not enough.
I think you and I both know that all these schools are not taking care of these children. And in their defense, it's too many kids.
It's a lot of them.
It's a lot of kids on their
Yeah.
plate. Even the role of guidance counselor has changed over the years, and they have so many job responsibilities. They don't even know the kids they're writing recommendations for. Their recommendations are literally cut and paste. They don't know the kid. So just think for a second that whether or not your child is getting into a college is largely impacted by that recommendation that comes there. Do you like the idea of someone who doesn't know you having that much control over your life?
No, that's a bad move. We wouldn't even put that on like a job application, someone you don't know.
So I advise some parents to get around that. I advise you to put together a resume for your kid and write a recommendation. Write something to help that person get to know who your kid is. Because if it's going to be a copy and paste, let them copy and paste what you put in front of their face. At least it'll be true.
So we talked about your kids, then, well, your daughter, and then your next son.
So my next son, when my daughter went away to school, the whole boarding school thing was new and strange. My husband thought it was bizarre. So we had a very small window. She went to school an hour and a half away. But then when it was time for my son, we cast a far wider net, and we looked at schools from the mid-Atlantic as far down as Delaware, all the way up through New England. And he landed at a boarding school in Connecticut. And he did great while he was there. He was a headmaster scholar. He traveled abroad to Spain in 10th grade. He lived with a host family for 9 weeks. In the summertime, we don't take summers off. All of my kids have done various enrichment programs, whether traveling to Spain or doing service work in South Africa, the Yale Global Scholar Program. So even these different types of things, whenever I would come across things like that, I would think about the kids in my village. And I would text my friends or email people, hey, who do you know? Do you know
Yo,
a
Tiger
kid
Moms, here
who's
we
doing
go.
this? Do you know a kid who's interested in band? Hey, such and such school like Duke has this going on. You know there's a camp. Why don't you send in the application for this?
You need a Facebook group. We need to get the.
So what's great
the news
about
out.
those different experiences is boarding school is not for everybody. My youngest kid isn't in boarding school. He goes to a local private school. But when you leave home and you experience something different, whether for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, you start to gain an independence. Your parents aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
It's preparing you for college.
Start to learn how to act.
Exactly. You start to ready yourself, especially when you're dealing with kids from all across the country, all across the world. It expands your mindset, and you start to view things differently, and it makes you more open. And kids like that learn how to collaborate. And that's very important. So when they now go to apply to these highly selective schools, those things matter.
Yes.
Right? So you might be in an okay school district, but they want to see, are you stepping outside of the box? Are you challenging yourself? What have you done to distinguish yourself from the other person? So that's why I ended up naming my initiative the Scholar Blueprint, because I literally wanted to show people we can create a map to get you there. And your map is going to be different from his map, it's going to be different from her map. But if you're willing to work, you can get there.
Yeah.
Now, everybody doesn't want to do that, and that's okay. But if you want to be great, you have to move like you want to be great.
That's what we try to tell some of the kids here, is that you got to move different. Someone I saw out one night, he just said, like, I remember you in high school and you used to move different. And I thought that was like the biggest compliment. And it was 10 years after high school. And I'm like, I guess so, because I was just really focused on changing my situation that I was born into.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't any extra room for the same stuff I already knew what was going on. So I was always trying to get out in different spaces.
I'll tell kids, the extra mile is never crowded.
Yeah.
It's just not. And sometimes I've heard kids, there's some kids who are in my class right now, and I'm putting people on blast.
Yeah.
They're like, Joe Young is going to Harvard. I could go to Harvard. No, you can't.
That's what
You're
I love.
not doing Harvard. You're not doing Harvard work.
Yeah.
If you're gonna half-ass
the brutal
it,
truth.
you're gonna get a half-ass result.
Yeah.
Joe is going to Harvard because Joe committed himself to working and working and working and making gains.
Yeah.
Harvard didn't give Joe anything.
Gains today.
Harvard did not give Joe anything. And again, I'm not speaking out of turn because Carla is a dear friend, his mother. Carla was on a previous show. Carla's a single parent.
Yeah.
She lost her husband to tragedy. She has raised 3 amazing boys. No one gave those boys anything. They didn't. But they decided to move different. And I'll tell you something else. You need to be coachable. If you think you know it all, good luck with that.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works.
You got to prove that then.
Right?
Or
do you have the receipts? If you don't have the receipts, you might want to pipe down just a little bit. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I saw someone have a meme on Facebook that said something to the effect of stop taking financial advice from broke people.
That makes pretty good sense.
If you have never been rich,
you shouldn't even be giving out advice, right?
To tell me, like, how are you going to clown me because I want to save or I want to increase my credit score? Like, I tell the students that your GPA and your SAT is your academic currency. That is your credit score. So sometimes I hear this narrative of
knowledge is money. Get you some.
Standardized testing isn't important and it doesn't matter. Do you want a doctor who couldn't pass his boards?
No, definitely not.
At some point, there's got to be something that measures
evaluation,
what
assessment.
And additionally, we can say, oh, I want to opt my kids out of the PSSA. I don't feel like having them take it. All right, you're setting them up for disaster because one day they're gonna have to take a test.
Yeah.
You cannot get in these here United States. At some point or other, you are going to have to take an assessment. If you haven't prepared your kid for that, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
What's gonna happen to them? You're not doing them any favors at all.
So I know you got to go feed your little last baby getting out of practice soon. So let's talk about him. One more success story besides Joe Young, and then last bit of advice for some parents trying to get their kids in better situations and into college.
Another kid that I'm not gonna big my kids up anymore, even though they're 3 stellar human beings. But Jamal Jakite. Last summer, Jamal took my SAT class. I had a class specifically for athletes. Mm-hmm. You had to be an athlete to be in there because I feel like there are specific qualities about athletes that they vibe off of each other, but they've also experienced some stigmas being athletes. The whole dumb
Fighting,
job
fighting the same battle.
thing.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So it's important for them to be in an environment. And mind you, these were boys from across the Lehigh. They were all from different schools.
Yeah.
And I like to see them to understand that, yeah, on Friday night you guys might play against each other, but we're all Lehigh Valley family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they even
a little bit bigger than
they
sports.
do service work together. My son organizes a meal at the homeless shelter in Easton, and he invites athletes from across the valley. So
Nice.
that's important, right? So anyhow, Jamal took his practice test last summer, that same baseline I told you about. And to be quite honest, it wasn't a crappy score. It was way above a whole lot of other people's, but it
Was it better than my 10-10 super score?
It was.
Good job, Jamal.
Actually, I'll be honest with you, it was over 1,200.
Okay. That's work.
But Jamal wasn't happy,
Okay.
right? Because for the past 4 or 5 years, Jamal had already began to move different.
Yeah.
And I do an exercise with every kid I work with, and I tell them, I need you to make a list of 10 to 15 colleges, right? Like, where are you going to school? And especially these athletes, they'll be talking about Alabama,
Yep, I knew it.
and you know, all the big schools.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I need you to write the average GPA, the average SAT for all these schools. In addition to what part of the country, is it rural, suburban, blah, blah, blah. When these kids start seeing what's actually required to get into the schools, they have a come to Jesus moment. Because a lot of them are looking at their sub 3 GPA and they're like, but here's the thing. The earlier you find out that you're not on the right path, the earlier that you can change that.
Yeah.
So sometimes kids will get down, and I'm like, well, aren't you glad you didn't find this out a week before the application was due? Like, at least you can make some changes and move different.
Yeah.
So Jamal took that test. He didn't like the result. Jamal goes to school in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. He came home every weekend to meet with a tutor.
Oh, what's that commute?
An hour and a half,
90 minutes each way or one way?
90 minutes each way.
So 3 hours. And then
Okay.
how long was the tutor? Another
He'd meet
2
with the
hours?
tutor an hour to two. But, so, a lot of kids I speak to, and I'll say, like, my son says to me, Mom, why are you always talking to people about the SAT? Somebody has to,
Yeah.
right? Because I've seen kids at his school who are seniors in December of their senior year who have yet to take the test. That is asinine
Yeah.
to me, SAT word. So, a lot of kids, I'll say, well, when you take your SAT? Oh, my guidance counselor said I don't have to worry about that until the fall of my senior year. So, let me get this straight. You're in the fall of your senior year. You may or may not play a fall sport. You're applying to colleges. You also have to keep your grades up. And you're going to be stressed over a test at the same time? Ideally, the SAT should be out of your way before your senior year starts. You should start in the spring of your junior year, ideally. That gives you a March sitting, a May sitting, a June sitting, and an August sitting. You can super score, so you can take your best math, add it to your best reading, writing, and put them together. If you've waited all the way to October and your college application is due in December, are you setting yourself up for success?
Absolutely not.
Jamal decided not to kick the can down the road. Jamal took the test the first time December of his junior year,
Yeah.
months before his peers. But because he had already taken that bench line, he had already determined where his weaknesses were in my class, and then he executed a plan. He took the test one time and was done.
Execute.
You want to know what happened the same week? Offer.
Bang, bang, bang. Execute.
From Ivy League schools.
And he's headed to...
He committed to Harvard.
Nice.
So now Joe has a friend.
So you just gotta, now you got some Saturdays in Harvard Yard.
Exactly.
Awesome. So the last bit of advice for a parent trying to help their kid, or a kid that wants to move different, and the parent that might want to be there for them.
The most important thing that I would say to parents is do not kick the can down the road. Even if you think that my kid's really smart, okay, then get that receipt from that practice test and know that they don't have any holes that need to be plugged.
Yeah.
The earlier that you start with your plan, the better. And my youngest child, poor thing, God bless him. You know, he's gone on the most college tours because when my daughter went, he went along.
Yeah.
And he said, what do I have to go for? I said, because one day you're going to go to school, you need to start to determine what do you like, what do you not like, right? So he went to everywhere. When my daughter was studying for the SAT and studying vocabulary words, the other two boys were studying too.
Oh,
you know
man.
why? Because vocabulary lasts forever.
Yeah.
And the sooner you build a rich vocabulary, it's with you forever. I remember my son was in daycare once, and he was about 3 years old, and I picked him up, and the teacher's assistant said, Mrs. Lucien, Jeremy used a word today. It was a very strange word. I said, antagonize? She said, how did you know? I said, that's his word. Because he would tell the kids, stop antagonizing me. He knew what it meant. Right?
So parents, don't kick the can down the road. Anything else?
And so ideally, it typically goes geometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus. The math test goes through pre-calculus and a little bit of advanced math. I'm finding kids who are in their junior year who are only just taking geometry. You haven't even learned all of the content.
Yeah.
There's some school districts where they do the block schedule. So kids have class a certain amount of times a week for like 90 minutes at a time. But so the kid is like, oh, I don't have to take math this semester. You don't use it, you lose it.
Okay.
So what happens is potentially some kids have not taken math for 6 to 12 months.
Oh, that's right.
That's
Because
not
of the block scheduling.
That's not good. Because if your son is in 11th grade, right? He's in the fall of his 11th grade year, and he hasn't taken math since the fall of 10th grade.
Yeah.
So now here comes the PSAT, which in 11th grade, it's a national merit finalist qualifier. There's money attached to that. It might not be a lot of money, but this U.S. currency,
Yes.
they cash it at the bank.
Absolutely.
Right?
You can buy food and clothes with it.
Like, why are you
need it.
walking away from an opportunity? Because how you do on that PSAT begins to determine the caliber of schools that are soliciting you for recruiting.
So how do we counter the block scheduling, 6 to 12 months kind of enrichment?
Parents need to, you're taking extra maths then. Oh, well.
Okay. So just take an extra math.
So there's some kids who are in my class right now.
Drop a gym and take a math.
Who are going into 12th grade and are still taking the test. And I'm like, do you have math in the fall? No. And I call the parent and say, call your guidance office. Make sure you get him in math. Because if math is your weakness, you're not doing yourself any favors by running from math.
Not getting in shape for it.
Because guess what? The goal is to get them, not just to get them to college, you want to survive and thrive. The goal is a degree. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get there and not do well because their requirements, their general education requirements, so you talked about my notes.
There they go.
I literally have a paper agenda because I'm juggling 5 people's lives. So I tell the kids, oh, I forgot we had class today.
It's raining outside. What happens if that gets wet?
Oh no, I keep it protected.
Protected.
But in the back here, this is my son's college requirements.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's extensive.
But when you take this, then we know what comes next, and we know what comes next, right? Because this is a team.
Yes.
Right? So when he went to schedule himself for classes this fall, they tried to dumb jock him. Oh, you can take math later. No, you're not. You can take math now. Because everything comes after. So the same way I know all of my kids' requirements.
Yes.
Each parent needs to know where is my kid in high school in respects to what he's required to do and how much wiggle room he has. Because nothing hurts my heart more than a kid who thinks he's walking in a couple of weeks and he can't graduate.
It's a shame.
There's no reason.
That looks like the Scholar Blueprint right there.
Right?
Roz, thank you so much. You
Thank
keep
you.
making gains, keep helping everybody make gains, and
Thank you.
every time I see you, I get some gains.
I would try.
You keep making gains
and
too.